Hiya, Martin here, thank you for joining me, I hope you are all well. In this episode of Tools I Use and Why I Use Them, we're going to be taking a look at the Vicmarc VL300 lathe and the Axminster 2030 lathe and why I chose them over others. The first thing that attracted me to the VL300 was its enormous swing capacity. There's 600mm swing on here, meaning there's 300mm from the centre of the spindle down to the lathe bed, which means I can turn an enormous 2 feet diameter straight over the bed. When I got the lathe, I also got the swing away bed extension, which is really handy for when I'm using long handled tools, when I'm turning or hollowing tools or something like that. And this means I can literally just swing the tailstock out of the way whilst I'm turning and then very easily swing it back into position when I need to. And it's great because this weighs a lot. The tailstock is nice and big and chunky and heavy too, and Vicmarc have lightened the load, as it were, by removing this section here. But I do think they've missed a trick a little bit, but there's a little bit of wasted space. I feel that they could quite easily turn this side and the other side into perhaps a little bit of a cupboard or some storage for some live centres. That's the only thing that I would change, really, I think. Both the tailstock quill and the main spindle have, in this case at least, Morse taper 2 fitting, so it fits all of the standard stuff. With a 3 horsepower motor in the cabinet beneath the headstock and 3 step pulleys, it gives me a speed range of 10 to 3000 RPM. The spindle is a standard size M33 3.5, and it's got the same on the back as well. So if the lathe was in a different position or in a different workshop, then I would be able to turn outboard on here just by losing the hand wheel, and everything's all nice and neatly bolted down. But with the position that the lathe is in, means I can only turn inboard on this lathe, and as you'll see in the vacuum chuck video, I do have a vacuum system that's all ready and waiting to be used at the drop of a hat. The tool rest is really comfortable to use with its slightly sloping angles on a 30mm stem, which makes it incredibly strong and tough, particularly when you're turning big pieces, and it is a total length of 300mm, giving plenty of scope. Control wise, there is a very handy control box on a magnet, which means you can stick it anywhere you want to on the lathe, with forward and reverse, stop, and a faster and slower switch as well. But also the lathe has an emergency stop. Just underneath the lathe bed there is a full length emergency stop switch that you can just hit it with your knee and the lathe will come to a stop without having to try and find the standard stop button on the control box. So I always keep that on the right hand side of the lathe. On each corner of the lathe are some adjustable legs, and that's really handy for getting the lathe to the right height. It will be a 2-person job, just the same as actually moving the lathe is definitely a 2 or more person job, and you can very easily just move up and down the legs to get the lathe to the right height. And there are the main reasons I choose to use a Vicmarc VL300. It's the perfect size for the workshop. The swing away lathe bed at the end is perfect for keeping the tailstock out of the way whilst I'm using long handled tools. It's incredibly powerful, it's extremely well built, and the swing on it at 2 feet or 600mm is just immense. It does everything that I want it to, and one thing I did forget to mention is that it is nice and quiet too. For those of you who have been following me on YouTube and social media over the last few years, you will recognise this lathe. This is the Axminster 2030 lathe, or as it's known now, I think it's the AP504. It's got a 20-inch swing over the bed, which is absolutely brilliant, and it's got a 30-inch bed between centres when everything is all pushed back as far as it can go. Now, one thing I really do like about this lathe and several other lathes on the market is the fact that the head spins and you can move it up and down the bed as well. So just by loosening it off, you can actually move it to exactly where you want to. And also you can spin it round 45 and 90 degrees as well, depending upon what you're turning. And I really like that feature of this lathe. It's still in use regularly. Here at the wood turning shop, it is the demonstration lathe in the teaching room. And it's getting quite a lot of use at the moment, which is great. Now, just out of shot down here is a lathe bed extension, which is really helpful for turning bigger stuff off the end of the lathe, which is every so often, or doing some deep eccentric stuff off centerpieces. Then I'll come in here and use this lathe to do it. With a 3 horsepower motor and 3 step pulleys, this gives me a speed of 60 to 3,250 RPM, which is an enormous range of speed and makes it ideal for anything that I want to be doing. Many thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Down here are a few videos I think you may find of interest, and if you click just down here you'll be able to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so just yet. But that's it for now. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.